Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Monster Families. Today we have the Vile Mother. Now there's no actual monster named the Vile Mother in the game, but that's actually what the family of monsters is called, that this monster family comes from. They have a lot of different names like Flesh Spawner, Stygian Hag, and Grotesque. The main thing about these particular monsters is that they are infinite spawning portals of smaller monsters known as the Vile Childs. Yes, they're vile children, which are flesh beasts, Stygian dogs, and grotesque worms. The Vile Mothers simply just do one thing. They just spawn monsters. It's almost like it's an attack. They literally just swing their arm, and as they swing their arm, they bring forth these little vile children into being. And they will continue to do this for, like, forever. They will just stand in the back and they will just spawn vile children after vile children after vile child. And the crazy thing is that they're not particularly very strong, but they seem to have one purpose in mind. And that purpose seems to be, well, F you melee characters. There are certain monster types in the game which seem to be designed for no other purpose other than to make melee life a living hell. Now, why do they do this? Well, because as a melee character, you generally have to hit and kill every single target, like one at a time. Even as a Zealer, you still have to run around and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You don't get to actually, just kill one monster at a time, and sometimes focusing your damage on those monsters can be a little bit difficult. Well, melee characters in general tend to have the worst problem with these, especially when combined with other infinitely spawning monsters, like we have currently in this particular game. You'll notice that we also have, at the same time, we have maggots. So imagine, if you will, a wall of baby maggots and vile children blocking your pathway while you try to get to wherever it is that you're going. Now, the easiest way to deal with the vile children is to not fight the vile children. It's to go specifically for the grotesques. Now, there are a couple ways that you can do this. So taunting the mothers will actually stop them from making babies and will get them to come directly over to you to attack. You can also potentially confuse them, which causes them to attack other monsters. You can't freeze them because most of the time they're very resistant or immune to cold. So unless you have a cold sunder, good luck. You can, however, stun them, do anything in your power to stop them from making their babies. The mothers are the most important thing to take care of right off the bat. Now, another important thing about these guys is that they can't be horked, the babies anyway. So if you try to hork the babies, like these guys right here, it just doesn't work. And of course I was wearing Tyrael's Might when I killed them, so there's no... there are no corpses! Dope. Let's demonstrate. So here we have one of the babies, and if I try to hork the baby, you get gold, maybe. You can get, like, nothing, basically, out of them, because they don't actually drop anything, but, like, gold or keys. You can, however, use the Find Potion ability on them, and you can get infinite numbers of potions from them, which is another various thing that you can do. And, of course, without my armor, I'd immediately die, which is fine. I keep forgetting that Tyrael's Might has Slain Monsters Rest in Peace on it, which prevents me from being able to show off things like horking. But, it'd be what it'd be. Let me drag one of these guys over here and I'll show it off to you this way. So here we have 4 of the corpses, and you can, of course, make potions from them. So despite the fact that you can't get anything loot-wise from the babies, you can, however, get an infinite number of potions, including full rejuvenation potions. If you'd like to just sit there and farm these guys infinitely, you can actually just get infinite full juvies from them using the Find Potion skill. However, you cannot get anything really from them with the Find Item skill except for, like, keys, gold, and, like, potions. It really kind of depends. I can't believe a ring popped out of one of them. That's kind of neat. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you can hork them for stuff. Let's drag a couple more back. And let's hork them again. Horking. Alright, let's get as many of these guys in here as we can so we can test hork. Ah, so maybe I am wrong on this. That's weird. So the maggots can't be horked. the baby maggots, but the baby vile children can be horked? Does that mean you could just infinitely hork the babies for equipment? I wonder if you could actually get anything good from them. That would be kind of a really crazy, like get like a setup where you have like infinite vile children coming and then like a barbarian sitting there horking and seeing if you can get like infinite gear. I was always under the impression that just like the maggots, you can't get anything worthwhile from them. Now the maggots, I know for a fact you can't get anything from them. In fact, I tested this earlier. So there's the baby maggots, and you can see I can hork the corpses, but nothing comes out of them. Oh, I got gold from one of them. But it looks like the vile children do actually drop items. That's rather interesting. There's a cutlass from one of the vile children. So the mothers themselves tend to be kind of annoying. They don't really engage in melee as often because they're more often trying to create babies, which forms like a living shield between you and them and makes it very difficult to essentially deal with them. But deal with them you must, because honestly you need to kill them quickly. You don't really get any EXP for these guys infinitely. So, like, there are going to be some of these that give EXP, but as far as I'm aware, the infinite spawning of them does not give experience points after a certain point. Like, if a monster spawns with, like, 7 or 8 of these around them, then the 7 or 8 that you have originally will give you experience points, and then I'm pretty sure that the ones after that give you none, which they don't generally, like, infinite spawning glitches, although I could be wrong about that too, because I was under the impression you couldn't hork these guys. It'd be funny to see, like, if we could just simply test real quick and see if you could actually get, like, infinite EXP for killing the babies. Of course, this guy is level 96, so I don't even know if he'd get any EXP from these guys anyway. What are we at? 313? I mean, as far as I'm able to tell, I'm not getting any EXP. Let's try killing one of the mothers. Okay, so we did get EXP for the mother, but we did not get any EXP for the babies. For the babies. So I think we've definitely proven at the very least that the infinite EXP would definitely not be possible. But for some reason, they seem to be horking items, which is maybe something that we might even make a video on. That sounds kind of funny. Going back to the stat sheets, you can see that the Grotesque mothers have pretty high HP at 9,200 to 15,455. And of course, they did this on purpose because they don't want you to be able to kill the vile mothers and stop them from making the babies. So they have particularly high HP. In comparison, low HP is like between 700 to like 3,000, and high HP, extremely high HP, would be like 20,000 to like 24,000. So they're definitely not like the highest HP monsters, but they still have really good HP comparatively to most of the lower HP types. They also have really high physical resistance in hell difficulty, 66%. Where the average is 50, they're above the average, which might explain to you why a lot of the times attacking them as a physical character seems to be relatively horrible, because they reduce your damage by 66%. So you only get 33% of your total physical damage left when you're dealing with the Vile Mothers. They have no magic resistance. They have no fire resistance. They do have particularly good cold resistance and are immune to cold resistance in hell difficulty. And they have no lightning resistance and no poison resistance. As I said earlier, these guys seem to be designed by their very nature to be like a giant middle finger to melee characters. Casters don't have much problem with these guys unless you're a cold caster. But most melee characters do have issues with the Vile Mothers because their physical resistance is so high. They spawn tons of babies, which have to be dealt with. Their HP is pretty decent as far as that goes. And, like, in general, as a physical damage character, they just kind of are really annoying. They also spawn these little babies. These are the Vile Children. Now, the Vile Children aren't as bad as the Mother. Obviously, the Vile Children have relatively low HP with only 2.3 to 4.3k, which is actually not bad at all. And their physical resistance is much lower with only 25% in hell difficulty and 0 in the others. They have 0 magic, 0 fire. They still have the cold resistance that their Mother has, and they have no lightning and no poison res. So in general, they're not hard to kill, and they spawn relatively quickly. But a lot of the times, especially if you have multiple mothers in the background spawning these, they can overwhelm and surround you relatively quickly. Now, granted, even a handful of these isn't too much of a threat, but getting stuck in a pack of these can sometimes lead to your death just simply because you can't get out of the danger. So, like, if you get stuck in a situation where you have a lot of these surrounding you and you can't get out, you can potentially just die to attrition. Now, these do also exist in Act 5. There are guest versions of the Act 5 monsters, and they pretty much all have the same exact stats as their Act 4 counterparts. There is one other version of these guys, and I plan on doing a separate video for these, but the Vile Children actually do exist in a different form, which is a rather unique, actually. It's part of the Putrid Defiler, which is the Pain Wyrm, and the Pain Wyrm seems to be exactly the same as the Vile Children, in fact, having the same graphic and everything, except for the fact that they glow. And they come from the dead bodies of monsters. So essentially what the Putrid Defilers do is they run around and they infect their own demons. And then when the demon dies, they create one of these little pain wyrms that then pops out of their corpse. Now, they're not really associated with these right here because they have different stats and they seem to be spawned in a different way. But overall, they have the same graphic and kind of the same stats as well because they're not particularly very strong. But I digress. Going back to the mothers and the children, one of the interesting things about the children, the Vile Children, is that they have the ability to deal cold damage, and they have the ability to deal poison damage, which does make them a little bit of a threat because the poison damage a lot of the time crits, and then you end up losing all of your HP, which can be an absolute pain in the butt. Running things like cleansing definitely helps out, or having fade so that you don't have to worry about the poison damage as much. And of course, as a melee character, since they have a chance to deal cold damage, if you don't have Cannot Be Frozen, could potentially be the end of you because they can lock you down with chilling effects, which is nutty. So most melee characters usually try to get some form of Cannot Be Frozen. Specifically because a lot of monsters in the game have the ability to dish out cold damage in some way, shape, or form. I think that's pretty much it. They're not like the most complicated monsters in the game. They don't generally have like the worst stats to deal with, but they can be particularly nasty specifically for melee characters. Their graphics kind of neat, and the fact that they spawn their little babies all over the place is kind of grody. But, I mean, looking at them, they resemble some sort of, like, you know, like crazy demonic form from another dimension. The original graphics, I kind of lean toward the original graphics a little bit more. I don't know, they look a little bit more evil in the original versions, I feel like. See if I can get rid of these hit lords real quick without killing the Grotesques. There we go. So we can get a good look at the pretty faces. Look at how pretty they are. So pretty. I wonder if there's an upper limit to how many babies they're allowed to spawn each. And then, like, if there's, like, an upper limit to how many total that they can spawn. I swear there's been times where I have been absolutely ridiculously surrounded by these things to the point of absurdity. And then sometimes it feels like they just stop spawning them for whatever reason. And I don't know if it's because they hit like an upper limit and they're not allowed to go any further than that, or maybe, I don't know. Like right now you can clearly see they're just attacking, and we currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the battlefield, maybe 7, I might be counting wrong. And there's 2 Grotesques. And they don't seem to spawn any more Grotesques while those 7 are alive. But then, of course, if I kill a couple of the babies, then all of a sudden they'll start spawning more of them. Another interesting thing is that if you pay attention to the graphic when they make the children, they actually spawn them out of their chest. You see their chest actually opens up, and they spawn the babies out of their their actual whole chest opens up like some sort of freaking Aliens movie or something. It's kind of grody. I'm curious how they have infinite resources to just keep casting their little chest babies over and over again. I think that's pretty much it with these guys. As always, I do appreciate... Oh, you know what? Actually, one more thing. Necromancers. So, revive Necromancers. Do they make good minions for Necromancers? They're mediocre at best. They're not really amazing. The minions die really, really quickly. They do have melee damage, which is okay, but they just don't really have the HP to stay alive. The mamas, I mean, are okay, I guess, if you can isolate them from the babies, but not really. I mean, as far as minions go, they're fodder. I would put them in the fodder category. They're definitely something that you could potentially grab if you have nothing else and you just need to get your armory started. They work really well for skeletons, like these guys, because their corpses work for anything. Even though they're not exactly the best monsters out there, you can very easily use these guys to farm for skeletons, like skeletons and skeleton mages, because you can just use their corpses for skeletons. And I probably wouldn't use them for revives, honestly. As always, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button if you enjoy the content. And as always, keep watching.